The UFC's return to Miami is in the books, and what a show it ended up being. After what was a lackluster London pay-per-view previously, the UFC came to Miami and put on a show, which has already served up one of the best moments of the year. In a card headlined in the MMA rematch and the quadrilogy between Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya, and Miami's own Jorge Masvidal returning to compete in front of his hometown, this card had a lot of hype coming into it. So did it live up to it? Let's find out. This is the Fight Franchise and the recap and review of UFC 287. This card only featured 3 prelim fights, due to the iconic Chris Barnett pulling out of the card due to an undisclosed reason. Then his opponent Chase Sherman would get a replacement, but would pull out himself due to a medical issue the day of the weigh-ins. The first fight, Sam Hughes took on Jacqueline Amorim, in a back and forth fight in which Amorim seemed to take the first round, but Hughes would come back and take the second and the third, and win the fight. The fight that followed this would be a load of fun between Steve Garcia and Shailin Nuradambiek. After a back and forth first round which saw Garcia get dropped, he would make a comeback in the first round, and at the end of the round he would wobble Nuradambiek himself. The second round, Garcia would storm Nuradambiek, landing a crazy amount of strikes and eventually folding him with a body shot and finishing him off with strikes in what was a really fun and entertaining fight. The final fight of the early prelims would be between Ignacio Bahamondes and Trey Ogden, in a very tense fight in which Bahamondes dominated him with kicks and striking. He would win all 3 rounds to secure a unanimous decision victory. The prelims also had a fight scrapped, with Li Jingliang pulling out with an injury against Michael Chiesa. The prelims, however, began with a back and forth fight between Cynthia Calvillo and Lupi Godinez. This fight would be very close and back and forth on the feet, which the fight would go to the judges' scorecard. Lupi Godinez would win the split decision, with Calvillo winning 30-27 on one of the judges' scorecards. This was a very competitive fight and maybe needs to be run back sometime soon. Gerald Meerschaert would take on Joe Pyfer in a 1-round fight which was back and forth on the feet, with Joe Pyfer clipping Meerschaert, who would go down to his knees, and Pyfer would smash Meerschaert with ground and pound to secure the TKO victory. A real fun women's fight took place, with Luana Pinerio versus Michelle Waterson Gomez in a fun striking battle, with Pinerio rocking Waterson at the end of the second and third round. The final round would be a fun back and forth round, with the fight going to the judges' scorecard. The fight would be close, but Pinerio would get the deserved nod on the judges' scorecard. The final fight of the prelims would be the well-deserved fight of the night. Kelvin Gastelum took on the action man Chris Curtis in a back and forth striking war on the feet, where both men fought and showed some brilliant hands, smashing each other across the cage. But it was Gastelum who turned back the clock and found the form which got him so close to the middleweight title. He would bounce across the octagon and piece up Curtis and would win the well-deserved decision victory. Even his post-fight speech was great, and let's hope he can go on a run in the middleweight division and finally get that undisputed title shot he was so unfortunate in never getting. The main card would be fun, with varying levels of implications across multiple weight classes in the UFC. The main card started with young prospect Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Christian Rodriguez. Rosas Jr. would shoot for a takedown from the get-go and would dominate the first round with grappling and scrambles. The second round, Rosas would go for the same takedown straight away. Rodriguez read this and stuffed the takedown. This would see Rosas get tired and Rodriguez dominate and take over the fight and win the next 2 rounds, dominating with the grappling and wrestling. The hype train has briefly been derailed, but Rosas Jr. is still young and has got years to grow as a fighter. Rodriguez needs to use this win to catapult his name and his career. Loudmouth Kevin Holland took on the always game Santiago Ponzinibbio in a fight solely fought on the feet, in which most fans hoped for more violence. Unfortunately, we never got it. This didn't stop it being a fun fight, which saw Holland dropping Ponzinibbio with the back fist, but the fight finished in the third round with the brilliant left hook which face planted Santiago, which secured Kevin Holland a brilliant win. Let's hope Kevin Holland is matched up with more fun fights with strikers so he can put on a show like he did with Wonderboy Thompson. The next fight would be a 1-round war between Rob Font and the highly touted Adrian Yanez, with most fans expecting Adrian Yanez beating Font and elevating himself in the bantamweight division. Yanez would show some brilliance in the striking department, piecing up Font, which saw Rob's eye swell up. However, this didn't stop both men trading and Rob Font pushing forward, clipping Yanez and eventually dropping him and finishing him with some ground strikes, securing a brilliant finish to get his career back on track. I can't wait to see what's next for Font, who is a very exciting fighter who always ends up in some great striking wars. Yanez, though suffering a major loss, it's going to be great seeing him get his career back on track, as we are probably going to see him put on some fun shows and fights. The co-main event saw the homecoming Jorge Masvidal taking on Gilbert Burns in a fight fight which has huge implications in the next title contender after Leon Edwards faces Colby Covington. This fight would see Jorge Masvidal slower than his usual self, being outdone in the striking and grappling over all 3 rounds and being dominated by Gilbert Burns, who won the unanimous decision, which definitely moves him so much closer to the title picture. As for Masvidal, in his post-fight speech, he confirmed it's time to hang up the gloves, thanking all that MMA has done for him and offered him over the last 20 years. From the backyard brawls in Miami all the way to bringing the biggest combat sports company back to his hometown in Miami, Masvidal is a true pioneer and legend of the sport and inspiration to many, and we hope he has a well-deserved, relaxing retirement. The main event was the much anticipated rematch of one of the most fun, entertaining and competitive fights of the last year. Israel Adesanya took on his biggest rival in all of combat sports, Alex Pereira, in which Israel Adesanya was on the hunt to reclaim his throne to become the king of the middleweight division once again. The fight would follow from the last bout, in which Pereira was winning the first round, with much more confidence using his leg kicks and backing up Adesanya and showing him who was the newly crowned champion. The second round was similar to the first, with Pereira much more aggressive and throwing his shots with more power and venom, with Adesanya working harder to be more evasive. Adesanya would catch Pereira a few times, but he would be unfazed. Pereira would land some heavy leg kicks which buckled Adesanya's leg, which ended up him being backed up against the fence. Pereira would start to unload on Adesanya, who would cover up, but Pereira, unfazed, would mistakenly keep his hands down. Adesanya threw a right hand which rocked Pereira and would land another right hand and then a left hook and then a hammer fist to lay out his fierce rival out cold in the octagon. This was spectacular, as no one saw it coming. Izzy has reclaimed his throne at the top of the middleweight division, and it seems like he has the energy like when he first burst onto the scene. This was a really fun fight, and I know Pereira got knocked out, but I love this rivalry and would love to see this trilogy play out in MMA again. This is definitely one of the KOs of the year and one of the moments of the year already. I can't wait to see what's next for both men's career, and this brought a fantastic end to a really good pay-per-view. UFC 287 was a really fun card and entertaining, which had some great and even legendary moments. Yes, some fights fell through, but it felt nice and digestible as a card. With less fights, it didn't seem to drag as much as other UFC cards have before. Yes, there were some lackluster moments, especially with the co-main event, but the Gastelum-Curtis War, the Yanez Font War, and the legendary Stylebender KO, I was torn on what to grade this card, but because of the amazing high and ending of the card, it gets a B. Overall, a really fun to watch card with great fights all night. This is definitely one to go back and watch highlights of, especially to see that legendary main event KO. Did you enjoy the video? Let us know down in the comments below. What did you guys think of UFC 287? And did you think it was a good card? Put it down in the comments below. And what did you think about that legendary KO in the main event? Put that down in the comments below. Leave a like if you've enjoyed the video and subscribe for more MMA and fight content coming soon. We hope you enjoyed the video and we'll catch you in the next one.